I think in high school it's pretty common occurrence to be forced to read books that you aren't super interested in, and then after leaving high school, you kind of either never pick up a book again, or you slowly fall back into love with reading, and I fall into the latter category. I was very much blessed with a teacher, Miss Amaro, shout out, I know you're watching, who loved reading and writing and everything that the English language had to offer. And after high school, I picked up a book and I really, started to enjoy it. So I just want to give you kind of a small glimpse into my book collection and what I enjoy, and kind of give you some book recommendations and see what I have. Also, you're gonna have to excuse if you hear my voice coughing or cracking, sniffling, because I am sick right now, and I do apologize. We're gonna start off strong with the current book that I'm reading. I saw this on TikTok a while ago, years ago I want to say, and I bought it when it was really big, and I never got to reading it, but one of my 2025 New Year's resolutions was to get through it. I want to say I'm on page 300-ish, around there, a little less than halfway. And really good. Really good. About 4 guys in New York and just kind of their lives and how they navigate it and aging. And as I kind of become older, it resonates with me. And some of the stuff is really spooky and scary. So, the next category of book that I want to show to you is my poetry collection. It was one of the things that got me back into reading after high school. In high school, I really enjoyed poetry. It was kind of that artsy-fartsy shit that I really liked. I liked the sense that you had to interpret it. It wasn't just a one-time read, but it was short enough that you could read the same thing 10 times in about 30 seconds. You know what I mean? The one that I really like is Pablo Nerando, and he's a Spanish poet, and I don't know, it's just like he writes a lot of love poems, and I just think they're super beautiful, and I highly recommend it. A lot of beautiful imagery, and it's just an easy read, so I highly recommend it. Again, another Pablo Nerando book, more specifically on love. And again, everything I said about Pablo, he's great. I love him. I have William Shakespeare. You'd be honestly shocked by how good, well, I don't know about shocked. One of the best known writers. Yeah, no, he's a kind of underground. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's pretty good. His sonnets and his poems, they're quite a read. I do recommend it if you get the chance to read. Quite beautiful. They're kind of old-timey, kind of hard to understand and digest, but it's a good read. I like it. Classic. Rupi Kaur, Milk and Honey. Kind of that Instagram shit that you always see, Instagram poetry that kind of ushered it in. Yeah, I think it's pretty basic, but I also think it's a great way to get into poetry if you're interested. Not super offensive, not super anything, super kind of in your face. Super obvious is a good word. Crush was the first poetry book I ever bought, and I just picked it up randomly. It was just in a random bookstore, like where I lived, and it was fucking really good. I think he won an award for this, Richard Sykin. Really good. It is translated, so if that bothers you, it is what it is. Cover is beautiful, not that long of a read. But yeah, I remember really loving it. I haven't read it in a long time, but I remember it being my first one, and I loved it. Emily Dickinson's collection of poems. Emily Dickinson was my favorite poet in high school. So when I saw it, I just knew I had to pick it up, and I was like, she kills it. She talks a lot about like nature and love, and the whole spectrum of life, and that's what I really enjoy. And I also think women just kind of naturally have that artistic sense to them. I think Emily Dickinson just killed it. I think she killed it. So I definitely check her out. Bringing the Shovel Down by Ross Gay. He is a gay man. Ironic. And I remember really enjoying this. He had a lot of. It's one of those books that you do have to, I think, reread again a couple of times to understand what he's trying to say in his messaging. But as a young boy at the time, was a teenager, finding out about like sexuality and stuff. This isn't necessarily about him struggling with sexuality, but him talking about those kind of themes really helped me at the time, and I really liked it. So highly recommend Ross Gay. Bring the Shovel Down. Alden Nolan. What happened when he went to the store for bread? I would have to say it is my favorite poem collection that I own. It is a collection of his earlier works when he was a teenager, and then when his middle life, kind of in his 20s, and then later in his life, kind of those collections put into one book, and it is great. It is just so, they're easy to understand, and they're thought-provoking, and they have a lot of symbolism, and I love it. I really vouch for him hard. Let me find my favorite one. It's a short one. A tiger in the Dublin Zoo. Know that I am Napoleon, the great, the magnificent tiger. Observe how an emperor takes possession of the ground on which he stands, imposes his own order on the space around him. I walk to and fro, and I am never halted. I stop and turn when I choose, and that is 3 feet short of the edge of the cage, no more and no less. Never once have I forgotten myself, and been stopped by the bars. I am Napoleon the Great, the magnificent tiger. I don't know. I just like, even, it's just so short, and it's so great, and it's so powerful. And I sound so corny saying it, but it's so true. I love reading it. Sylvia Plath, I think is really good. I have not read all her poems, but I think she is pretty highly regarded in the poetry space, and I understand why. She's great. I remember really liking her collection and my readings of it. So yeah, check her out if you haven't. I don't remember much, but she was good. Film for Her by Orion Carlotto. This collection of poetry is actually followed with pictures, which is great. It's like a picture book with films, which I think is dope. So not only is it, beautiful, beautiful poetry, but it's also beautiful, beautiful pictures that coincide and go along with the poetry. And a lot of times, like, it's kind of gimmicky, but it really does work to make it stand out and to kind of make itself known in the space. And I think they kind of complement each other in a very synergistic way. And again, it's another female creator. She's very modern. I think she is a YouTuber, which is super fucking dope. And it kind of talks about like struggles that I think a woman or a person in our generation is going through. Highly recommend. Definitely one of, again, my favorite poetry books. This is Where the Sidewalks Ends by Shel Silverstein, a famous kids author. He obviously makes very goofy poems that are followed almost regularly with goofy pictures. So I highly recommend even if you aren't the biggest into poetry, to pick it up just to look at the art. Like, it is so fun and does not take itself all that stuff seriously, which is great. Because I think a lot of the times, poetry has this reputation of being so uppity and so up its own ass that Shel Silverstein goes the complete opposite way, and he totally kills it. The next set of books I'm going to show you are very much in the realm of self-help books. And for a long time I thought that reading was not wasteful, but I thought that they should be more, if I'm going to read, I need to get something out of it. And self-help books obviously are meant to help you. These aren't all of my self-help books. I got rid of a lot of them. I think at a certain point, once you read one, you read the whole fucking lot. But a great one to start off with is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Obviously, very famous book. New York bestseller, of course. But honestly, it does say a lot. In its small little runtime. One that I think is actually genuinely super great is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think in this day and age, when it's really hard to make friends, it kind of brings you back down to earth and just reminds you that we're all human. And this was written a long time ago. I want to say like before the 2000s. And it doesn't sound long, but you know, relatively to how fast information moves now. Yeah, but I feel like this really does remind you of the small things. You know, one of the things it tells you is just to smile at people. You know, it's so basic and it's so, I want to say thoughtless, but it is so much more inviting when you see someone smiling at you, saying, "Hey, how's it going?" Instead of being like, "So what's up, man?" Like, that's not inviting. That's not how you win friends. That's not how you influence people. Who knew? Barking up the wrong tree is more about success than anything else, and setting goals, and talking about how successful people become successful and what their mindset is. And again, it's honestly, it's kind of one of the run-of-the-mill books. It's one of those, you read this one, you read them all, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. And now we're gonna kind of go to, you know, still kind of like learning and you get something out of it. Ishmael is a story about a gorilla who learns how to talk, who takes on disciples and tries to give them kind of like a spiritual awakening about the world we live in. And takes us, it's a crazy story. It is a crazy story, very insightful, while also being just a genuinely intriguing story, which I think is very hard to do. And I think Ishmael kills it. Ishmael kills it. Highly recommend. I won't lie to you, I have like all these kind of classical, like artsy fartsy books. I have Plato's Closet, Plato, The Republic, The Odyssey, Contemporary Art, Short History, Social Contract. I haven't read them. They seem honestly at this point more just for the looks and the aesthetics. But you know, books can serve multiple purposes, right? So if you read them, tell me if they're good. Tell me if they're worth my time. Alright, so the next section is more of the non-fiction. This is when I was like, man, I just kind of enjoy reading and hearing stories, and I like just reading words on a piece of paper. This is just for the pure enjoyment, nothing to necessarily gain from it. One of my newest collections, shout out Tom Bolo, St. Petersburg, The Vortex, is written by a Spanish guy, translated, and it is about lovers and how a male lover messes up in a relationship with this girl and his journey to win her back. And it really intrigued me. I do like romance. I've never read like a Twilight or anything like that, but I like love. I love love. So I'm excited to read this one. This is probably next up on my list when I finish. Things Fall Apart. I found out that this was like a book you read in high school, and I understand. It's very what's the word? educational in a weird sense. Kind of like I was saying with Ishmael, but it's about this guy in Africa and kind of the African life, and you kind of get a peek in it, which is really interesting. And then the second half, he has to go into the modern world and, you know, find himself in that a different environment where, you know, all his pre-notions are totally different, all his rituals and such. I didn't finish. I lost interest, but it's a pretty short read and easy read. So if that sounds interesting, you pick it up. But if it doesn't, probably won't take your fancy. Two-Step Devil, crazy book. It's a crazy book. It's about like this old man who sees images that he thinks are sent by God, and he sees like the devil, and he saves this little girl from being prostituted and doing drugs. Super weird book. I can't even say if I liked it or not, but I didn't finish it, so it definitely kept me engaged. You know, you never really know what the fuck's gonna happen. Definitely interesting, definitely weird. If you like weird books, check this one out. But I can't 100% say you're gonna read this book and fucking love it. It's a weird book. Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. It's an oldie, but it is really fun. And this book is super cool. It's one of the originals. And you get little pictures with it. Oh man, how great is that? Yeah, Alice in Wonderland, if you've ever seen like the movie, the Disney movie, is definitely weird, but it does not show the full capacity of its fucking weirdness. It is odd. It's a weird read. And but it's super fun. You know what I mean? I got through this in a couple of days. It is so silly, and you fall in love with Alice. You fall in love with the characters. I understand why this blew up, and he could have made like a million stories of just Alice going through crazy things. What was it? Lewis Carlo, crazy mind, interesting mind. He's a funny guy. I highly recommend. If you haven't read it and you've been wanting to, let's do it. Love in a Mixtape is a romance. It is heartbreaking. It's a short read for sure. You can definitely get through it in a couple of days if you just sit down. If you're a music lover, it's like, oh my god, and I love music. It's about people who fall in love and tragedy and you know, the struggles of that, and it's all encompassed through an 80s lens, and it is just so fucking, it's like so good and ooey gooey, and then it rips your heart out and then puts it back together. It's so good. No One Belongs Here. No One Belongs Here More Than You, stories by Miranda July. This is a collection of short stories. I did read it. I did remember enjoying it. Super weird book. Super kind of like neo, you know what I mean? Super modern. Things that like in the 1980s would have gotten her killed. You know, crazy, she's crazy. But she talked about them. And I think it's definitely like a fun read. Definitely keeps you on your toes. Once a story starts to feel like it's dragging, it's pretty much done. So yeah, if it sounds interesting. Like, alright, I remember one of the stories being like she goes downstairs to meet a guy, like her neighbor, old guy, and then they fuse. It's just oddball shit. The Grapes of Wrath. This book is also one of those like high school reads, and I understand. Thick book, a lot of crazy shit goes down. But I did read it, and I remember like reading about halfway through and then putting it down for like 2 years, and I stopped reading entirely because I was like, fuck, what a hefty book this is. But it's really good, honestly. Like, I understand why they read it. Like, you just fall in love with the characters, you fall in love with the family that it follows, and every decision kind of makes sense. You're never lost in it. Every action has a consequence, and it just tackles themes. I want to say, what, 1930s? Jesus. where, you know, crazy shit was just happening. You know, just brings you to a time where crazy shit was happening. Uh, so if you haven't, you know, heard of it or given it a read, I recommend. This movie, Good Will Hunting, the script. Oh my god, I love the movie. I love Robin. I love Matt. I love Ben Affleck. I loved every actor. I loved every character. And so I just looked up if I could buy the script. And yeah, very easily. I think it was like $7. It was fucking dope. And just to kind of see how it diverges from the movie was super cool, and just to kind of get more of the same thing was super dope. I love this movie. This movie was what made me get into movies. It's a great movie. Check it out. The Crane Husband by Kelly Barnhill. Kelly Barnhill is the very first author that I read one of her books, and I was like, oh my god, I like her as an author, and I would like to read more of her work. The Crane Husband is her latest release at the time of recording this, and it's okay. I wish I could say it was better than okay. This is not the first book I've read of hers, but it was still good. She has a very young adult vibe to her, and this is probably one of the more mature books from her discography. And they always kind of have a little bit of a fantastical element to it. It's about a woman who brings home a crane as a husband, and kind of the horrors that her daughters have to go through to kind of save the mother and to save themselves. She always kind of gives me a little bit of like a Studio Ghibli vibes, and maybe I'm just saying that because the latest movie from Studio Ghibli is The Boy and the Heron, but she always kind of gives me that Studio Ghibli vibes for sure. So I do like children's media. I do find it interesting how adults want to portray something to someone who may not want or may not be able to fully comprehend the full scope of what they're trying to tell them, if that makes any sense. I always find it super interesting about kids' medias, and I love kids' books. I think kids' books are dope, and they have a very fun whimsy to them that is kind of lost in adult media. We're going to start off with Kelly Barnhill. Shout out her. This is the first book I read from her, The Girl Who Drank the Moon. And this easily could be turned into a Studio Ghibli movie. I think it is perfect for it. Light fantasy, comforting, easy read. I picked it up and could not put it down. I loved it so much that I checked her out again. It was such a good book. I highly recommend it if you like that fantasy stuff. Can't talk it enough. So good. I fell in love with it. I fell in love. Again, another Kelly Barnhill book, The Iron-Hearted Violets. It's about a girl who is a storyteller, who's a princess, but she's kind of ugly looking, and that's not how princesses are supposed to be. And I think it's great to kind of show, hey, you know, you may not look like these other girls, you may not be told that these other girls are supposed to look a certain way, but you can still be badass and cool. And I think it's a great story about dragons and fantasy and hope, and it's a good book for sure. Definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I don't think it's Kelly's strongest work, but definitely really good. And I can't even lie to you, Lost and Found I have not read but the pictures in this, you have to just see. They are absolutely stunning. Like, just the artwork alone, I knew I had to pick it up. Like, look at this, just like sprawling pages. It is so pretty. And it's just so fun. Oh my god. Like, I love this stuff, dude. It is so beautiful. I gotta buy more kids books, is what it sounds like. So that is all the books that I own. Hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully you found a book recommendation that resonates with you. And yeah, hopefully you could drop a book recommendation for me. I will eventually finish My Little Life. And I'll talk to you guys later, hopefully. See you around. Bye!